And the heat of Lisbon, the first game in the thousands, to see the boys become champions. 67. And the heat of Lisbon, the first game in the thousands, to see the boys become champions.
So hello and welcome to the very first, and hopefully a series of podcasts we've decided to call the Smell the Glove podcast. I am St Paulie D, aka Jungle Jim 67 on Twitter. Joining me now on Skype from sunny Myrtle Beach, USA, is Dr. J of the Myrtle Beach Ball-Deep Celtic Sports Club. Dr. J, how are you doing?
Oh, Paul, beautiful, beautiful. Hail, brother.
Hail, hail. So it's been a while since I last saw you. What's been going on?
Since I last saw you, I've basically flown about 100,000 miles. I've been everywhere, working, things like that, trying to catch as much of every single game I can get on TV. But after that, that's about everything I do.
Have you been watching MLS?
No.
Good for
No,
you.
no.
Good
I don't
for
know
you.
anybody who watches MLS.
Last week I had a problem where an MLS game broke out in my backyard and I had to close the curtains. Honestly, to give it props, I mean it's the most disjointed, strange football you see in your life. I went to a game and I couldn't tell someone. I was with girls and they asked me, what level is this? Is it Premier League or First Division or whatever? And I said, well, when they're going forward, it looks Premier League. When they're defending, it looks Pub League. You know what I mean? It's just really strange, disjointed football. But anyway, we are not here to talk about MLS today. We're going to start off our new podcast. And I think before we start the podcast, I think it'd be good to kind of tell people what the idea of this podcast is. So the aim of the podcast, we're not trying to take the place of any other Celtic podcasts out there, are we? I mean, Hail Hail Media has some great stuff on the go at the moment. You've got podcasts out there like The Homeboys, Beyond the Waves, 90 Minute Cynic, and they've put their hard-earned time and work and energy into doing this. And if anything, that's our inspiration for doing this show. Those guys have been great for so long. So I was saying, this show is going to be a bit lighthearted. It's not going to be a phone-in show like Beyond the Waves. We won't be going to the political aspects as the Homeboys, because they already do an amazing job of that. And let's face it, they're way more informed than we are. We also feel that 90 Minute Cynic that gives us a great tactical breakdown of all things Celtic. We'll obviously talk a little bit about games and stuff, but if you're looking for detailed, intelligent reports and analysis, I'd suggest probably checking out 90 Minute Cynic, because we're actually just full of pish. Would that be a fair assessment?
You know what? That I don't think you could actually lay it out any more serious than that, because the biggest thing I think we want to get across is, where did all the fun go? Where did all the fun go on all this stuff? I mean, this is supposed to be like something that I do in my spare time. I lately it's been so dire, I've wanted to jump out of the first floor window of my house.
It is. Well, what we're saying, just before we move on to a couple of things, so that we're going to talk about the present in a second, this podcast hopefully won't be dated in respects that we're going to be talking about things in the present, but we're also going to be talking about people in the past. So we're going to talk about players from the past, we're going to talk about events of the past, and talking about them in detail. Because sometimes, if you're there's a lot of American fans, a lot of Canadian fans that are just getting into Celtic. It's kind of nice to be told about a player that you've never really heard of before, or you kind of missed out on. So keep listening. If you're listening to this in like 6 months' time, don't worry, we're going to be talking about this week's Celtic game. We will talk about a couple of things in the present, but we're going to be talking about stuff in the past as well. Anyway, before we go any further, it should be noted we've actually had to re-record this show, as me and Dr. J actually Skyped each other the night of the Liga game where we thought we'd just been pumped out of Europe. So we spent about 2.5 hours talking about Europa League and how we're using that as a bit of a consolation, etc., for being out of the Champions League. So now we've heard the news that Liga have been pumped out for cheating, we've decided to scrap that. We've had a bit of a re-record and we've decided to break the episode into two. So we'll have episode 1 and episode 2. The first episode we're going to be talking about Ronnie's initial impact as manager, the Liga game itself, Celtic's signing policy, and we'll be taking a look back at Celtic from the past. In the next show we're going to be talking about Celtic's first 2 home games of the season, which will give us a bit more insight than just the first game today. We'll also be talking about Maribor, and hopefully at that point Liga will be officially thrown out of Europe and their appeal will be done and dusted. So let's get it over and done with. Dr. J, what are your thoughts on the Liga home tie itself?
Oh my God. I'll tell you what, when the game ended the other day, I couldn't get up to turn the TV off. I was absolutely stunned. I could not move. And it's weird because usually I don't let things like that bother me. And I just walked around the rest of the day. Even my wife looked at me and she goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I think so." I couldn't understand what it was. It didn't make any sense to me. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And
okay, I'm
and
going to stop. I'm going to be honest here, right? I had a job interview, so I missed the game. And when I saw the score, I didn't watch it back. Talk me through it. What happened?
uh, we never got on the front foot. Never. It's weird. It never. There was one move forward. That was it. I mean, there was one time Matthews overlapped on the right side of my buddy over there of McGregor, and that was the only time they actually went forward. It was weird. It was, the only time that looked urgent going forward was when there was a goal kick and Forster hurried up and took the goal kick. That was it. That was the entire time that it looked urgent, and that's not the right point in time. And it's just, I don't know. I've never, and this is what's weird, Paul. You've been a fan for. I mean, you came out of your mother like in the shadow of Celtic. Yeah,
yeah.
Back when I was in high school.
Yeah.
But I mean, even back then, my point is that when you were going through all this stuff, I mean, you've seen the highs and lows. I'm relatively new. Like for me, it's weird. I mean, I grew up, born in New York, no connection at all, and now I'm, as you would say, Celtic daft for a number of reasons. But I mean, I've never seen them play like that. Even when they lost, they won last game of the season, and Lennon stands up there and goes, "This isn't the end. This is just the beginning." I remember sitting there going, they may have, Sammy may have missed that PK and may have, some things may have happened, but at least I saw a fight in them at the very end, and they still won that last game 4-5-0. I didn't get any of that. I didn't get any of that in this game, and there was nothing there. It's like I was by myself. I didn't want anyone here. My poor wife, she left the house, and I was literally in my house looking at TV, and I was just freaked out, going, I don't know who this is. Whoever put this team with the hoops on, please replace them with the kids in the team that I remember, because it just isn't them.
Well, I've got something here. I mean, obviously, my knowledge of Celtic goes back to the early 90s, and there's guys out there who've been watching football from the 50s, so I'll listen to them, whatever. But just based on past experience, when Venglos took over, we got pumped out the Champions League first round or second round against Croatia Zagreb, when we were meant to be going to the Champions League for the first time, because we had first league win with Janssen for 10 years. When Strachan took over from Martin O'Neill, pumped out the Champions League in the second qualifying round. When Neil Lennon came in, we couldn't even qualify for the UEFA Cup and got kicked out, then let in on a technicality. So this constant, there's a changeover where, because our schedule's so early and having to get in a manager in the summer and get his team settled, it seems like it's almost impossible for us to qualify for Europe. And that sounds like a huge excuse. I'm not saying excuse. I'm not saying hit the panic button. I'm just saying that this has happened in the past, and it's unfortunate. It's just I think potentially Ronnie's tried to change too much too soon. And it's hard to say, hey, guys, just go out there and play the football you played last year. Because that's not his thing. It's hard to do that. But potentially rein it back a little bit, make less changes to the football, and just go out and play Celtic football. Just do what you're doing. And then intensely work on stuff while we're in the league. What do you think? I mean, do you think it was a case of too much too soon? Or, I mean, because those players should have the ability to at least get to the next round of the qualifiers, if not the Champions League, right?
I would assume so. I mean, what's the back line different that had all the records? Well, I mean, what's the difference in the back line that had all the records?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's the same back five.
Absolutely.
You know what
I mean?
It's got to be the high pressing, and I get that, and I get that, and and trying to make light of it. I want to sit here and I want to laugh. And go, oh, it was so cute. I mean, you look at how they attacked, Reykjavik, and that was great. Mm-hmm. I love that. I mean, them playing through balls and the ball on the ground, everything else.
I gotta be honest, though, Reykjavik looked like a pub team.
I get that. No, I get that. What I'm saying is the overall look of being able to play that much of a high tempo up the field type of match looked great. I remember thinking, wow, all the amount of diagonal balls in that game at Murray Park. I was like, wow.
Oh, wait. Murray Field, not Murray Park.
Murray Field, sorry.
Murray Park is Rangers training ground, so we definitely play there.
Murray Field. The amount of the amount of diagonal balls in that game was absolutely crazy. And I was like, wow, this is going to be really good. I'm liking this. And all of a sudden, I remember looking at that game and thinking, oh, we scored the first goal against Warsaw. This is gonna be great. And all of a sudden, I was like, what the hell just happened here?
Yeah. I mean, we spoke directly after we beat Reykjavik, and we both talked about how quick we looked, how crisper passing looked, and it was hard. But we both said it's hard to tell against opposition at that level. Now, I don't think Liga Warsaw are a Champions League football team. I don't think remotely. I think they're probably an average team you'd play in the UEFA Cup, to be quite honest. But I mean, someone might correct me on that. They might have a better knowledge of Polish football. I sure as hell don't. But I'd expect to get past that team. And it was kind of like, when I circled that in the calendar and looked at it, I was like, that's going to be tough. Not on the basis that opposing team's good. It's just because this might be a situation where Celtic are bad. It's happened in the past. It happened under Venglos. Happened under Butt. Happened under every manager we have when we have a transition in manager in summer. It's trying to get a guy in, get his philosophy and his football over, and we always have a poor start to the season, but then we recover. So I don't think we should hit the panic button on Ronny Deila. I mean, what overall, what is your perception of, okay, going out and signing Ronny Deila for the club? Because there's guys like Frank McAvenny that have came on and said, who is this guy? Nobody's going to sign for a manager you've never heard of. But truth be told, players sign for clubs, not for managers.
I read those articles, and I've read the other ones too. I've read there's a bunch of them out there about who is this guy and why. And listen, Paul, listen, I've made if you go back and I remember being on Beyond the Waves with Graham and talking about taking over, who would take over a team if Neil left, and this whole conversation. Let's just be honest with each other here. The guy was brought in because they are not going to be replacing anybody. They're going to sell people, and that's just how it is. And that's what they're going to do. And they're going to try and go ahead and create what's going on. They're going to, the process of buying young and building and trying to sprinkle in a couple players that are seasoned here and there is basically what they're going to try and do. It's not a money ball. It's a hybrid. It's not a Benfica. It's not a Porto. It is just their version of what they can do. And that is why they brought him. There's no way in the world that you're going to take somebody who's been able to go ahead and sign $6, $8, $10 million players and he's going to come here and feel like he's handcuffed. Not going to happen. But if you take a guy from Norway and you say, listen, come here, you've been able to make, sandcastles out of absolute shit with your teams up in Norway. We're going to give you the same ability to make something out of nothing. We're going to give you that ability. That's why they brought him. Let's not kid ourselves.
I think you're part right and part wrong. I think that you're right in respects that, part of it was financial. We couldn't attract a big name. But if you're the Celtic board, whatever, and I'm not defending the board here because I will tear them apart later in this podcast. If you can't get the top level candidates in England, and that's where they're looking, British game, English football is the highest level within the British Isles. If you can't get the top level guys, right, which is not going to happen, you don't have the money to pay them, you don't have the money to give them transfer wise. They don't want to come and play in Scottish football in what they think is a one horse race right now. So if you can't get the top level guys, you can't even get the second rate guys half the time. You're looking down the ladder to the guys that have been fired by other clubs. Again and again, this merry-go-round. These guys like Sam Allardyce and etc. keep getting jobs and they're fucking dismal. These guys are, I can't even imagine, they're dinosaurs. If you can't get, why hire these guys? It's just a constant merry-go-round of crap, fucking shit British managers. The best
because it's safe.
Yeah, because it's safe.
Because it's safe.
It's a safe bet. You know what's better than that? Going out and getting a foreign manager who has a good pedigree, that you think the best foreign manager that you think there. It's more of a risk, yes, but you know what? If Celtic don't have competition in this league at the moment, with Sevco not even there, if they think that any manager can win the league with Celtic, which is true, probably Celtic will win the manager with me or you as manager, and that's saying something. If that's the case, then this is a time to experiment and look out and try and get a guy who might not be great now, but might push Celtic to the next level and might be able to work with the youth, and might be able to do that. I love Ronny Deila's appointment. Do I think he's going to be successful? I don't know. I don't know as a Celtic manager. To me, he's like a Wim Jansen, he's a Venglos, he's a bit of a stab in the dark. But on paper, he sounds great. Getting guys in who have got on paper sound great. I think the upside on paper to Ronny Deila is better than the upside to Owen Coyle and the upside to Malky Mackay right now?
Yes, but let me ask you this. Answer this question for me.
Mm-hmm.
What is the reason for him having an upside? Is it because you think he can take youth players and develop them into things that can be, or I see things as players that can be useful in the first team and then sold on?
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that we're this. I hate using the term Moneyball because the word Moneyball does not apply to football. There's a concept of like economics where we get guys and sell them on. That isn't Moneyball. So we should all stop using the term Moneyball.
No, I never said the term
No. But no, you hear it online all the time. People say Moneyball, right? No, Ronnie Deila to me is he's won the league with a shit club in Norway. Sorry to the club he was with, but as far as we know, they were in poor state, and he turned them into something good, which means he's been successful. He's got a track record of success. Okay,
with what? With what?
With fuck all money. You're right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Remember that. That's the reason why he's here.
What was Martin O'Neill's track record before coming to Celtic? He kept Leicester up and didn't get them relegated when he had fuck all money to work with, and that is why we went and got Martin O'Neill.
And what year was this?
This was obviously 2000, right? So it's a different game, and you could say it's 14 years later. But
yes,
the concept. Why did Everton go out and get Roberto Martinez? His team just got relegated. Wigan just got relegated
because he's able to make gold out of shit. That's
exactly.
Correct.
Well, Ronnie Deila has been able to make gold out of shit because we can't get Roberto Martinez to Celtic Park. I'd love him there. I think he's a great manager, but we're not going to get that guy. So Ronnie Deila is a guy of that mould that can hopefully play good attacking football, bring through youth, has a history of already doing it in a smaller league, but yet he's done it. Okay,
that's exactly my point.
So on paper, that's his positives. What on paper are Owen Coyle and Malky Mackay's positives?
That they have Premier League experience, whether they were successful or not.
Okay, so they've been in the Premier League.
That's it.
That's about it.
As far as I'm concerned.
And Malky Mackay played for Celtic.
Okay.
That's I'm clutching at straws. I mean, that's it. And I think I'm coming across as harsh because I know Coyle and Malky Mackay got shitloads of criticism online when their names got thrown out there, but I'm not going to be as harsh as some of the people who are there. But I'd rather have Ronnie Deila. I'd well rather have Ronnie Deila than those two. I mean, the appointment of Ronnie Deila, I don't know if there's my knowledge of European football isn't good enough to say, there's, because I know 90 Minute Cynic done certain categories where like, what about this guy? What about that guy? And I mean, we were speaking about it offline the other day. Garcia at Brighton, everybody championed this guy. We couldn't find a Brighton fan to say anything good about him. So it's like one of these things where the person with the most positivity coming into this whole thing was Ronnie Deila. Do I know it's the right guy? No. I think it's probably the best option that we had at that time. I think Celtic should keep doing that. We should keep on getting managers who are the best option and players who are the best option at that time. We're not going to be able to attract Mourinho. He's not coming. Let's get over that. Let's go out and get the best guy that we can get. And at the moment, potentially Ronnie Deila. How is it? I think it's too early to look at anything and see if this guy's a success or a failure.
I agree with you. Listen, the board has made their bed. They're going to have to go ahead and live with it.
The worst Celtic I never saw that game, but the worst Celtic performance I've probably ever seen was us getting beat in Strachan's European qualifier when we got pumped 5-0 away from home. And yeah, we turned it around, we won 4-0 at Parkhead, but that was appalling. And he had Bobo Balde, Chris Sutton, Neil Lennon, and expensive football players. Ronnie Deila doesn't have that at the moment. But I don't know. Well, I mean, I think the next thing we should move on to is like the signing policy. I want to talk about Ledley and I want to talk about Matthews in a second, right? But who is the player that Celtic fans for the last year and a half have been like, why are we not signing this guy? He's a goal scorer. Finn Borgenson. Agreed?
Oh, Finn Bogason. Yes.
Why? Well, I'm sorry, Finn Bogason. Sorry, I've got the pronunciation wrong. Okay, right. And it was like, why are we not signing this guy? Why are we not signing this guy? Okay, see if you're a club, you don't have to sell your players to Celtic or anyone else. If they don't offer you enough money that you want, you don't have to sell them. It's not the law. Also, you might, even if someone offers you 100 million quid, you might not want to sell a player. Okay, so have you kept tabs on our boy Finn Borgenson?
I agree with you.
Have you kept tabs on the guy? Do you know where he's at just now?
Yeah, I just saw he played. He plays for Real Sociedad. He played today.
Absolutely.
In the team against Aberdeen in the UEFA playoff.
Okay, and he went for an undisclosed fee. Okay, do you know what that undisclosed fee was believed to be in the Spanish press?
7 million.
8 to 9 million.
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
but remember,
8 to 9 million.
there's
okay,
a big
right.
difference. Remember, we were on him before he scored another 30 goals.
Nah,
so
bullshit. Like, they didn't want to sell the guy at the time because AC Milan wanted him as well. They would have held out and got 9 million for the guy. Now, you can't say, oh, we would have got him for less, because that's bullshit. If he was under contract, why would they sell? They basically could have kept the guy for another season, got 30 goals out of him, and scored him for 9 million. They didn't want to sell the fucking player. Now, here's the thing.
Listen, I don't know if their chief executive is Peter Lawwell and he's willing to go and sell our players for nothing.
Well, yeah, exactly. Here's the thing, though, right? Okay, would you or would you not spend £9 million on a football player for Celtic?
Oh man,
9 million transfer fee.
Paul, you're asking the wrong guy.
Are you going to say yes?
I really, you're asking the wrong guy, man. I'm so stuck between this. You know, this is the problem that I have. I'm looking back at this going monetarily as my own business owner and growing up in this, you know, our backgrounds are so different. Growing up in my capitalistic thought process and then looking at profit and margin and profit and loss. You know, could you do it? The answer is yes. If you wanted to keep your highest assets, sign them to long-term deals, they want to stay. They become worth infinitely more. The team becomes more. You can go ahead and build on that strength. The answer is yes. If that's your plan, I have no problem with being able to go ahead and spend that money. But you got to guarantee yourself that you're going to go ahead and get the Champions League money. Now, I'll tell you what, though. You know what? Here's the sad part about Champions League money. Last year was what, £15 million, something like that, 15, 16 million pound. The new TV deal this year, just getting in the group stages, is 20 million.
Fucking hell, man.
I know.
There's no other Scottish club to split that with as well. Don't we get the whole thing? Like, I know there's a trickle down to the Scottish League, but
there's a participation fee that goes into the SFA coffers. God knows where the fuck that money goes.
But here's my thing about a £9 million football player. I agree with it. It's already been said elsewhere, much better than I'll say it. I don't think you can get a £9 million football player at Celtic. I think what you do is you get a £6 million player and you've overspent £3 million. But here's what had happened, right? We've already talked about Ledley and we've talked about Matthews. Would you agree that they're two top quality Bosman signings? Good bit of business. Right, okay. £9 million transfer fee, right? Excluding follow-ons, all that shit, excluding wages for Finn Borgenson. Instead of taking that, I'm not saying don't spend £9 million. I'm saying don't spend £9 million on a transfer fee, right? Get that money and invest it in wages and sign Bosmans. £9 million works out at £57,682 a year on 3-year deals, okay? So you could sign pretty much a £60,000 football player on a 3-year deal. Now, I don't think you should sign a £60,000 football player on the basis there'll be such a difference between him and the rest of the squad. I mean, if you got Finn Borgenson, if you put him on £9 million footballers, if you signed him for £9 million, he's going to be on 60 grand anyway, so that's even more money to talk about. I think you should take that £9 million, spread it out across 3 years, and bring in 3 20 grand football players a week, or 2 30 grand football players a week. Makes more sense to spread the money out. No upfront fee for the guy. Spread the money out. Less risk, ability to sell for profit, and I'm not going to be one of those guys that looks at stats and figures. I think we should keep our best players, right? What happens is, if we get a guy in who's an absolute donut on 20 grand a week, we can hopefully at least sell him for £1 million, and that £1 million might pay back his transfer fee. It's better than paying one guy 50k a week, and the rest being on 50k.
Oh, of course. Hey, listen, how many times? I mean, listen, we flipped Tony Watt from 80 grand to 1 point some million. We flipped Kelvin Wilson for free into something. We flipped, Ledley for free into something. So I mean, it happens, and it's happened, quite often compared to who we brought in. I think you're right about that. I think I like the idea of the Bosmans and going from there as far as.
The thing is, what we should do is I think the idea of Celtic spending transfer fees should almost be a last ditch attempt to get a player, right? What we should do is being established, trying to find guys who are going down to the last year of their contracts, right? And getting them in Bosmans. Look at Matthews, look at Ledley, look at Chris Commons. Chris Commons we got for 300k because he was leaving in the summer, and we basically just bought out his contract. That's the same thing happened to Henrik Larsson, pretty much, right? If we get 3 players in on 20 grand a week, that's your franchise players. That's your bigger players. They'll be on the higher pay salary. If the other players complain and say, how come they're on 20 grand if we're on 15 or 10? Well, they didn't complain with Joe Ledley. Did Joe Ledley not get more money? If they understand that it's being able to find these guys and get them in on Bosman's pre-contracts, that sort of thing, and pay them a bit more, get a higher quality player without wasting £9 million on transfer fee that you don't get back. The wages are reinvested in the club. There's a book called Soccer Economics which looks at the English Premier League, and it's pretty much top to bottom is that the more money you spend on wages, the better your team is and higher up the league you are. Nothing to do with transfer fees. Transfer fees can be wasted. You could buy Finn Ferguson for £8 million and he could break his leg. That's an obvious redundant statement, but that's a part of it. Getting in guys on Bosman's, putting them on a higher wage, better quality player coming to the club, because we can't afford to spend £4.5 million player, or sorry, like £7 million on a player, and him to be shit. It's just like, if we put it into wages is an investment in the club. That's what I think anyway. I don't know. Matthews, Ledley, Commons, they're probably 3 best signings that we've made over the last few years.
I agree with you. Let me put it this way. We talk about signing policies. What do you think? And I have a point. I have a point I'm trying to make here. What do you think is the prospect for success in La Liga for Atletico Madrid this year?
What do I think the prospect of success is? Well, they won the league last year. I don't watch Spanish football, so I don't know a lot about it. Has there been any great changes? They've signed.
Oh, yeah, their whole team's gone. But here's the thing. Here's what they did, right? You know, their goalkeeper was Courtois, right? The guy from Chelsea
on loan, yeah.
He's back at Chelsea, right? They sold their
Diego
Costa. They sold him on to Chelsea, right? So when you start looking at it, you realize 3 or 4 of their star players were all loanees.
Yeah.
So I hear, and this is what kills me. If you're talking about building and then going backwards and then building upon strength, and then, not every team in the world builds upon strength. I mean, you can look at La Liga, and I'd be willing to bet you Atletico may end up in top 5. They're not going to get anywhere near, you follow me? Not anywhere near the semifinals or even the quarterfinals of Champions League this year. They got rid of half their players, so you're looking at bringing everything up. But here's what they did do: they brought in 3 or 4 or 5 loanee players who ended up doing extremely well. They took these players on, right? Paid them their wage. And then what happens is, if you think of the old saying, I mean, a rising tide lifts all boats. So, I mean, if you have players that you want to showcase, but you can't get into the Champions League, well, shit, you're out of luck. But if you could go ahead and pick up 3 or 4 really decent loan players and then put them in and build them into the side, I heard Dial say, I don't want to improve their, someone else's players. No. I have no problem with that. The only issue is going to be the punter at Celtic Park who's mad because, the next year we're not as good as we were the year before. And, and that's the question I have for you is, would you be willing to go on a Seville type, run where, you're going to Lisbon to play in the final again like last year and you're Atletico? Would you be willing to go ahead and risk everything? You had these players, these loan players for a year and a half, 2 years, and then to build it and then just have it be this is it, and then sell your top 3 or 4 players because they were seen in the Champions League final for big money, and then have to rebuild again. Is that something? Yeah. Is that something you think would that go over well, or would you hear bodies jumping out of tenement windows in Glasgow? Oh my God! And then because they're not,
people
what I mean?
Would freak out. They'd say we're not building on success. That happened after Seville, etc. They'd say why are we not spending more to keep these guys, etc., etc. I think the concept of bringing in loan players is great if you're Atletico Madrid, right? And you're willing to spend money and rack up debt and all that sort of thing. And I don't think you should get loan players at Celtic. I don't like it as a fan. I don't like emotionally investing in a player who I know is not going to be there next season. You can say that all you want. You could say that all you want. I know you would find the money. Wait.
If Celtic had 3 or 4 loan players and they were playing in Lisbon last May, you would have found a way.
Right, I'd be there. I'm not going to be like,
that's all I'm saying. Right. You would have been there, and you would have said "fuck all" about a loan player. You'd have been like, "Woo!"
Okay. So your concept is this, right? That the start of summer we should get in a couple or 3 high quality loan players to try and get us in the Champions League. Is that right?
Yes, it's worth 20 million.
My option is this, right? Instead of that, this year, you should be identifying who's going to be available on a Bosman next summer and signing them on pre-contracts or free transfers or less money in January of the start of the year. Get them in for summer or preferably before summer, like guys like Chris Commons, etc. These guys are on high wages. They're the guys that get you in the Champions League, right? You've spent nothing on them because they've came in on Bosmans, right? They're on 20 grand a week. You've got 3 of them.
Same thing. I mean, listen,
or 2 on 30 grand a week. What you're saying that is different from a loan player in respects this, that okay, if we don't get in the Champions League, would be bullshit, you could technically sell them, right? Then you're going to get an investment back on them. They're going to still be your player in 2 years' time. You've got them on 3-year contracts. I'm not saying that it's possible to do that. I'm just saying it'd be an idea to do it, and I'd rather do that than loan signings. It's a more permanent option, and it's more economical.
Listen, I'd rather take the known commodity and then get on the run, because here's the difference. You ready?
I'm not saying the guys that we would sign on Bosmans wouldn't be known commodities. I'm just saying guys that potentially in English Premiership, the lower end of the English Premiership, high end of the Championship, not the best places to shop, but just an example, or are reasonably well scouted foreign players that of good quality, paying them a little bit extra and getting them on Bosmans rather than signing high profile loan signings from clubs like Chelsea.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Okay.
How well did Costa play in the World Cup?
Costa Rica?
No, Diego Costa.
Oh, Diego Costa.
Yeah.
Was he fit? Was he even fit in the World Cup?
Kinda. I mean, he played a little bit.
I can't even remember him, to be honest with you, but my international football knowledge is poor. And I've been drinking a lot this summer.
He played absolutely.
So tell me.
He was absolutely pissed. But you know what they sold him for? Did he look like a 32 million pound player? No.
I heard he went for 32 million. No.
He moved to Chelsea for 32 million pound. Come on, listen, and it's because was it because he was decent? No, it's because he was okay with a bunch of really good loan players around him. So they were able to go ahead and sell somebody they would have sold for 8 or 10 or 12 million for 32 million. Their fans are going to talk about these people forever. They had the T-shirt. They were there. They had the great beer in Lisbon. They got to see everything, and they will always remember winning La Liga. But you know what? In 5 years, they won't remember whether or not that guy was a loan player or not. They have their memory and their wallpaper and everything else. And to me,
however, I agree that we're not going to sign Diego Costa. We're not going to sign Diego Costa. These guys, high quality guys, we're not going to get on loans. The type of guys that we'll get on loan is, I've got an idea. Listen to this guy. He's a Dutch international. He's played in the World Cup final and he plays for Bayern Munich. Do you want him on loan? Do you like the sound of this guy? This hypothetical player.
You talk about a guy named let's see, who are you talking about?
Do you remember, was it Brafield or Brafhide?
Oh,
the left back that we got under Mowbray. Played in the World Cup final. Bayern Munich player, Dutch international. We brought him in on loan and he was fucking pish. Now, I'm saying that's the type of loan player you're going to get at Celtic, right? Instead of that, bringing three Joe Ledleys or those type of players. Guys that are going to be consistently good for a long period of time on a higher wage. And then, when it's said and done, sell them on, make a profit, and invest it again in another Bosman on high wages and keep it like that. Anyway, I think we've done this to death. You think we should do loans? I think we should do Bosmans. Is that agreed? But either way, we agree we're going to have to spend money to get in.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're exactly correct. You're right. We're going to spend money somewhere. I mean, I think I saw Ronnie Dyla tweet today that he was surprised that he actually had to pay £10 to get back on the bus to Celtic Park from Murrayfield yesterday. Can you believe Peter Lawwell his own team?
He what? Sorry, you're breaking up a bit.
Peter Lawwell his own team. We're going to make that into a verb. The Peter Lawwell
Pistol Pete
overcharged.
Are you going to bring this up with him next time you're playing golf together?
Next time. Listen, let me tell you something about him. Let me explain something to you. Next time I see him, I'm going to tell him how wonderful he is because let me explain to you what he did. I don't know if I don't know if a lot of people understand see Celtic TV on a regular basis like you and I do. Did you realize? Are you actually? I take that back. I know you. I know you're not going to realize this because you were actually working for a living. There was no Celtic wall, and if you watch Celtic TV, that's where people basically chat during the game and try and talk each other off the ledge when we're losing 2-0.
So they took it down because of Lawwell.
No, they took it down
because I saw people were giving them abuse.
Whole wall. Let's check this out.
Hilarious in the first Liga game.
No. The whole entire wall for the first probably 30 or 40 comments was all stuff written in Polish. Remember, Celtic did not sell the rights to anybody for TV anywhere in the world. If you wanted to watch that game, you had to stump up £40 to watch that game on Celtic TV. You had to register and actually subscribe to Celtic TV to watch that game.
The Polish fans So the Polish fans subscribed to Celtic TV
to watch the game. Yes.
What? Why didn't they just watch it? Yes, they had to. Well, thanks for the money.
Yeah. Peter Lawwell, the Liga fans.
They paid
Lawwell their fans. That's awesome. So they literally
could they not
disabled
have done us a favour and just let us win 3-0?
And they gave us the money, and it looks like they're going to let us win. Yeah, exactly right. But that's what happened. That wild. So they disabled the wall because all the people posting in Polish. They knew that would have been absolute carnage.
Well, you're not allowed to hang a banner in a foreign language at Scottish football grounds. I remember being in the Celtic section once when we had Boric and Zarawski. These Polish guys came down with a Polish flag with all this Polish writing on it. And the stewards came and said, listen, you're going to have to take this down. It's okay to have the Polish flag if you want that up, but we've got to be able to decipher what it says because it could say anything. So, I don't know, maybe it's something to do with that. I don't know.
Oh, but that's exactly what
Celtic
I read.
television.
4 or 5 places. Yeah, I read 4 or 5 different places that Celtic did not sell the rights to the game. So they basically wanted the money for themselves, and they made everyone pay.
I find it hard to believe that Liga fans signed up for Celtic TV. They could have just got it on a stream. Really
there was no stream.
I think it's probably Polish Celtic fans taking the piss.
Oh, I don't know, man.
There's no. If it's on Celtic TV, you can get it on the dodgy streams that I don't use because I'm a loyal Celtic TV customer. But right, we're gonna move on.
All right, go ahead.
So what we're gonna do next is top five and bottom 5 of the week. Okay, have you got a list ready? What's your bottom 5?
I do.
Celtic this week.
You want which one? You want top or bottom?
We'll start with bottom. We'll get that out of the fucking way.
Joe Ingrid, whatever her name is, Birgit, is my number one bottom 5. I'm sorry to take that one from you. I don't know. I don't know what your 5 are, but I know that may be my 1 through 7.
He's a loan signing. I thought you'd like him. All right, just rattle them off. What's your bottom 5?
Man, that was tough. That was a tough one. Birgit was 1 to me. Matthews playing left back was a bottom 5 for me. That's not very good. Number 3 is Liga away. Number 4 is Liga home. And then my favorite 4 players, my core 4, Van Dijk, Commons, Forster, Matthews, and 8 other players all leaving tomorrow.
Right, that's pretty shit. But okay, my bottom 5 are this. 1, getting rattled out of Europe. 2, failure to replace talent. 3, losing Forster, best goalkeeper we've had since I've been alive. 4, still probably no standing section. And 5, the worst possible thing that's going on right now is probably going to sell Chris Commons for about $2 million to a shit English team. It's like
now. Why do you now? How come you say $2 million, but I read someone wanted for 7.8?
7.8 for a 30-year-old player. No, we're going to get about $2 million, and we're going to
invest. I read that it was
invest it in a shit player. I think you got to get to the stage where it's like we have so much trouble trying to find talent that you're better just giving the man his money and letting him wind out his days at Celtic on a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal, and hoping you can get great great ability out of him for the next 3 years, rather than you sell him for $2 million and you bring in fucking nobody. It's like we sold Barry Robson for what, £2 million to Middlesbrough, and we couldn't replace him. So we wasted. We burned that $2 million on bringing like Nguemo on a fucking loan deal. We couldn't cut it. So keep Chris Collins, give him a fucking deal, fucking pay the man, give him some money, make him stay. He's the fucking most consistent football player we have. Keep him.
I agree.
Keep our best players.
And the important part is, it isn't just that. He's a Celtic man.
Yeah. Also, like, if you're saying 7 million, if someone offered 7 million for us, I'd be like, yeah, he's 30 years old, 7 million quid. But the fact is, Leicester City are like, he's 30 years old, here's £2 million. What are we going to do with 2 million quid? And yeah, you could say, oh, we bought Van Dijk for 2 million quid. How many times did we go out and sign shit £2 million football players? Bangura, Rasmussen, all that? No. Keep the man, give him his fucking money, keep him at Celtic. Alright, let's get more positive. What's your top 5 of the week?
Number 1 positive was Tony Watt. And I don't mean for us, I mean for him. Him getting out of this mess. That's number 1 positive. 2, McGregor's played unbelievable. 3, Fisher finally looks like he's healthy again, Darnell Fisher. 4 was the attacking through balls against Reykjavik. And then I don't have a 5th because I'm still upset.
You're not going to agree with my 5. I'll do it. I think I read them in reverse order last time. So you really do 5 to 1, right? So 5 is McGregor, totally agree. 4, clutching at straws here, but manager talking a good game of youth. Looks like we're interested in an Irish under-21. At least bringing youth through. We all said it in Philly last year. We want to see youth players, right? 3, Celtic away kit. It's fucking mintage, right? 2, not loaning or bringing in shitty journeyman player. I don't want any 35-year-olds coming to the club, whatever. Someone was talking about Ronaldinho coming in who's 36. Fuck that. Yes, I will sign Chris Collins at 30 years old, but just not any old players that are just falling to bits. And obviously the number one thing I can think of at the moment is sneaking into the Champions League on a technicality if we manage to get our shit together and get past Maribor. Anyway, as I said earlier, we're not just going to focus on the past.
So your number 2 was the fact that we did not sign Ronaldinho. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that we're not signing shit old players.
Can we add a couple names to that list of people glad we didn't sign?
Go for it.
How about our boy from Italy through way of Australia, Del Piero? There's another one. I'm glad that he's like, I want to go play there.
What happened to him in Australia? Is he still there?
He just finished. He just retired from whoever the hell he was playing for down there. Right. And he made the comment.
Jimmy Bullard when he was like 33. What a fucking horrible signing that would have been. Oh, thank God we didn't get him.
Del Piero is. I think I went to high school with Del Piero, and I mean he's that old, and he can. I guess he can score goals, but you know I don't know. That one was absolutely weird.
It would have just been class to. It would have been class to see a Celtic shirt with Del Piero in the back of it, but that is it. He would have done nothing for us. Like,
listen, could you imagine
if your options Australia's? Like, come on, man, let's not do that.
Ready? Could you imagine this front attacking 3? Ronaldinho, Del Piero, and Commons. Meanwhile, Griffiths and Stokes sit there and go, what the hell just happened to me?
Exactly. You know the only old player I'd sign in the world right now is Landon Donovan. I'll throw you a bone as an American fan. The only reason I'd sign him is to fucking get him in a Celtic shirt and have fucking Times Square, a big poster of him in a Celtic shirt, being like, I'm back. And
Nike shirt.
That would be an investment. And a Nike shirt. And like
and a Nike shirt.
That would be an investment. That would be an investment into America and our future over there. That is the only player I could imagine that's old as fuck that we could bring in that's anything useful. But anyway, right, we're going to move on to the news section. It's unfortunate
though, because that sounds like a great idea, but apparently our board wants to go to China. But never mind.
Oh Christ! Is Doué coming back? What a player he was.
Doué.
Do you remember Doué?
You know what? I had to go watch. You say Doué. I actually had to go watch the video of him and his 8 minutes on the park. There's video. There's YouTube.
Mate. Oh Christ! I've got to look this up.
Yeah,
man.
it was bad.
I think I'm in a place in my life where I can watch it now.
Chad Doué was bad. This was bad. This was bad.
Chad Doué was like, he served the purpose. He was a stopgap, right? We just brought him in on a Bosman stopgap. You're not going to be the best player in the world for us. You're just going to get us through the next 6 months, low risk. And then we brought in better players afterwards. And he was pish, but he done a job at the time. But there you go. But not Chadure, Douay, fucking hell, dismal player. But anyway, we're going to move into a new section, right? We're going to look back. So like we said earlier on, we're not just going to be talking about Celtic in the future or the present. We're going to be looking at the past a bit. We're going to look at previous teams, players, and events from Celtic's history. So today we're going to start with a section called The Celt That Was. We're looking back on a player from recent history, reviewing the impact in his Celtic career, and maybe having a wee look at what happened to him after he left us. Now, we could have done the really obvious ones like Lubo, Larsson, and Nakamura, but we've decided to pick someone from not far long ago who frequently split the Celtic support. So, Dr. J, who are we talking about today?
Oh, without a doubt. The people that say I'm a fat Kelvin Wilson, that's what I look like, a fat Kelvin Wilson. So I'm going to go for Kelvin Wilson.
You do look like a fat Kelvin Wilson. The fat Puerto Rican Kelvin Wilson.
The Puerto Rican Kelvin Wilson. That's exactly correct.
Fucking hell, man. Never thought of that. Right, so Kelvin Wilson, did we know much about him before he was linked to Celtic? Because I think if you remember rightly, this was a really long drawn out transfer.
Yeah, it was, because he was at what? He was at
I don't think anyone would know him.
Forest, right?
Forest. So basically, Lenny found him. When Lenny went to play for Forest, he ran the rule over a young Kelvin Wilson, thought he was a pretty good player. And it was a fairly drawn-out transfer situation. We're first actually linked to him in May 2010. Okay, he didn't sign for us for another year. So he didn't come to us that summer. And then I remember we were linked to him, we're heavily linked to him. The paper's like, no, you'll get him in January, So at the start of that season, he was playing for Forest. I thought, I'll have a look at this guy, because I saw Forest were on telly. And the game had already started, and it was about 15 minutes in. I put on Sky Sports. The second it went on Sky Sports 2 or whatever Forest were playing on, it just clicked onto Kelvin Wilson trying to clear the ball, getting the ball trapped under his feet, and Derby County or some other pish English mob punting the ball in the back of the net. And thinking, I've switched it on to watch this guy, and he looks fucking shit. Did you know anything about the guy before he came?
The only thing I knew was that the manager hated him for wanting to leave and wouldn't let him practice with the first team. That's all I remember. I don't remember anything
here's
else.
a little bit of history of him. He we got linked to him in May 2010. We couldn't arrange a transfer fee with Forest. So in that season, 2010-2011, he played 10 games up until January. That's when he signed a pre-contract with us. Billy Davis refused to play him for the rest of the season. Both Billy Davis and Kelvin Wilson, after that, stated there's never been a rift between the two. And it actually just seems like Davis didn't play him because he's a manky Hun. Correct? Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah.
Billy
Sebconian,
Davis, manky Hun.
Shot in the same. I mean, pick any one of the three.
Oh well, we're trying to make this a PC podcast. It's not worked out. But anyway, here you go. So 2011, 2012, he signed for us. He's 22 years old. And it was pretty much the typical Celtic signing of good to start with, got injured, then a bit pish. Thoughts?
You know, I when people talk about getting settled, he's the ultimate. He'd never settled at the very beginning. The first season did not play well at all. I don't think so. I don't think he played very well at all.
I think when players settle, I think you got to, in the first 4 or 5 games he was okay. Then he got injured. Then he came back after a few games, and then he was shocking. The main highlight of his before Christmas was, I think, in September when we played the Zombies at fucking Ibrox and got beat 4-2. And he was responsible for a really shocking goal. His inability to clear his lines, which allowed Stevie Naismith to score. And I'll never forgive him for that, because I was on my mate's stag night in London, and it was the only time I've ever watched a Celtic Rangers game with Rangers fans in a pub in London. And I was surrounded by Huns. And watching Celtic lose surrounded by Huns was pretty much the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But I did, however, when leaving the bar, when some guy was giving me abuse, just walk up to this Hun, and I'll never forget this. I said, your team will be fucking dead in 12 months' time. I don't even know why you're cheering. He's like, aye, that'll never happen, So it always fills me with joy when I look back and watching Rangers' demise. I always think of that guy, and I wonder if he remembers me and telling him that his team was going to die, and they did. So fuck them. So he had a horrible Old Firm game. Then Achilles tear out for 10 weeks. Yeah.
Listen, let me ask a question. Let me tell you, here was the thing that killed me the most about him. And my one memory of him, I actually went to Glasgow and saw the Celtic Killie cup final back in March 2012. I was actually at Hampden for that, and he did not.
Ironically, I was in New York for that.
Ah, there you go. He did not cover himself in glory.
Yeah.
Oh, God. And then there's no way in the world you could look back and go, oh, yeah, he's going to do great. I don't know how. And then next year, in 2013, he did absolutely.
So when would that Killie final be? That would have been like May or no? It would have been like March.
It was March. Yeah, I was there for St. Patrick's Day. It was St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Because I remember. So that's like your latter half of the 2011-2012 season, and I remember like my mate James, who's been a season ticket holder for years now, just saying we need to get rid of this guy as soon as possible. But the rest of the guys that went to the football with, we were all like, he'll come good, he's just a bit shit. But all the guys that didn't go to the games, that were just watching on TV, thought he was pish. Now the reason that we thought he was okay was, or could get better with a better partner beside him was, one, he was organising the defence. When you're watching a game on TV, you don't see the defence when the ball goes forward. He was a guy setting up the line, like analysing everything, pointing, shouting, doing a lot of the organising. Secondly, his make-up speed. When someone else let the ball, a player slip through, he was an athlete. He was a really big, fast guy for a centre half. He would chase back and make tackles that when other people fucked up. So there was little glimpses in there of like we could potentially have a player. It's just the consistency is so pish. But who was he playing with that year? Would it have been Mulgrew at the back with him at that time, or who?
Back then it was Mulgrew. Yeah, it was Mulgrew and Matthews and Rogner.
Oh, Rogner as well. Oh yeah, he was. Oh. So I think I'll only ever judge a centre half on who he plays alongside as well. I remember Stubbsy, and one of my favourite Celtic players out of the recent era, or not so recent now anyway, was Alan Stubbs. And Alan Stubbs, when he came to Celtic, got tortured. He was utter pish, etc., etc. But then you realise that he was playing beside Mark McNally and John Hughes, and they were fucking journeyman pish football. Mark McNally especially was one of the worst centre halves I've ever seen in my life. And maybe people will argue with me later on, but I still stand by that. As a kid, and I just remember thinking how shit he was. So he was crap, and then Mark Reaper turned up. And I don't think Mark Reaper was the greatest football player in the world, but he was a step up in class from those guys. And Reaper and Stubbs looked good together. Did they let in some clangers? Absolutely. But it was more of a partnership. It was more balanced. It allowed Stubbs to pass the ball about. So I think it was basically trying to find him a partner to play with. Quite ironically, the best football he played with was F.A. Ambrose, who's probably not most consistent of football players. But anyway, moving into his next season, it's 2012-2013, which seemed to be a bit of a breakout year for the guy. We managed to get ourselves in the Champions League, imagine that, with Kelvin putting in some solid performances, most notably against Helsingborg, where he kind of got... Sammy stole the show in that game, if I remember. But Kelvin played a bit of a stormer. You remember that?
Yes, in fact,
sort of thing.
I was I was at the home leg. I actually was in Glasgow for the home leg.
I was living in London at the time, so I remember watching it at Camden CFC, and just being so fucking relieved when we got through that. But yeah, no. So at this point, it is Effie and Wilson that are playing together, and Lennon's trying to sandwich Mulgrew in any way he can. So we've obviously got the 2-1 famous win over Barcelona. But see, to be honest with you, if I'm thinking of Kelvin Wilson, the best game that I felt he had was against Barcelona in the first game when we got beat 2-1.
That was a good game.
Do you know?
That was a good game. Hey, here's a tricky question for you.
We lost 2 goals in it. We lost 2 goals in it. Who played left back in that game?
Yeah, to them, yes, correct. Let me ask a question. When we beat Barcelona at home, who played left back for us? Who played left back for us when we played Barcelona at home?
Matthews.
Adam Matthews, that's correct.
And we beat them? That was Matthews.
Yes, that's correct. What happened?
That was the concept of like inverting your wing backs to force them inside and all that sort of thing. The thing is, Barcelona didn't want to play on the wing, so they didn't want to go wide and hit the byline. So it was okay having a right-foot football player playing left back.
They never put a corner into the box. Never put a corner in the box. Because they were all playing midgets.
Brilliant.
The entire team was midgets.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
In the first game when we lost, right, we got beat 2-1 when Sammy scored first. What's hilarious, actually, if you watch that back, because I watched it back before coming on, Sammy scores the goal, but he doesn't celebrate. Because it comes off Xavi, so it's like part of the reason looks like, oh, I'm not celebrating because it's a it's a goal,
goal.
Because it's an own goal. But part of it looks like, oh fuck, we've scored too early and shiting himself. Do you know, it felt like we'd scored too early in that game. So Barcelona got 2 goals, and it was on the 45th minute, just before half time, and obviously in the last kick of the ball in extra time. So Barcelona over the 2 games actually only had the lead for us for 1 second, which is hilarious.
Correct.
But yeah, so Wilson has a fucking stormer, even though the first Barcelona goal, Barcelona passed us to pieces. But see, to be honest with you, when I watched that go back, it looks a typical Barcelona goal that they've done against Real Madrid and AC Milan and everyone else.
It looked like a
it's just a case
coming
of
down the mountain.
It's just like fucking Xavi and Iniesta being the two midfielders of their fucking generation and just fucking ripping us apart. We're holding on by the skin of our teeth. We knew it, and I'd rather lose by a moment of, well, the first goal was a moment of individual brilliance rather than just fucking up and that sort of thing. So yeah, so the rest of the season, Kelvin Wilson gelled into a bit of a football player. Would that be a correct assessment?
It would, because that's what he did. He played absolutely great. I thought he played great the rest of the year. I mean, the commentary of him, of him being settled and being there and enjoying his football. Never heard anything, contrary to that. And then all of a sudden,
he's gone.
It goes bad. Yeah,
so
it goes bad.
So one of the things is his exit was it was an undisclosed fee when he went back to Nottingham Forest. I checked up a Nottingham Forest claim. It was £2.5 million they paid for the guy. So getting a guy on a boss, that's a hell of a bit of business for us, actually. I hate to be those people talking about numbers and figures, but yeah. And then he went to Forest, and in that season he required back surgery that kept him out for 7 months. So
yeah, he's played. I think he's played since he left. He's played 7 matches for Forest.
Well, see, to be honest with you, right? See, regardless of, imagine if we had him and Van Dijk playing together. That would be an upgrade, right? I would have liked to have seen that. I'm not saying they're the best 2 centre halves in the world, but I think it'd probably be the best central defending pairing we've had since fucking long time. Anyway, but yeah. So anyway, let's recap on the guy. We got him for free. He played 2 seasons. Well, actually 1.5 due to injury. We supposedly got more than £2 million for the guy when he came back. He only left the club. What's that?
They say he missed his wife so much he had to go back. His wife or his girlfriend or his ex?
Some form of family thing. His ex-wife or something like that. But he actually only left the club due to family reasons. He returned back to the club where he originally came from, and he's still there. He's not like fucking went off to play for Wigan or some shit after that. So
let me ask a question.
Man of his word. Yeah.
Let me ask a question. What do you think would have happened to the Celtic Twitterverse if we had pulled that, let someone go free, and then paid to bring him back?
That would have been. Have Celtic ever done that? We've never paid to get a guy back, have we? I know Mulgrew came back on a Bosman, but we're probably the worst people to speak about this. It's guys at the homeboys like Paul Larkin will know this. We don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure they
this
did.
Is where we're fucking uninformed.
Yes, I'll tell you what though. This I do know from my history of playing around on Twitter with Celtic fans. There would have been absolutely. I mean, listen, just look at Hooper. I mean, the conversation that maybe Hooper would want to come back. He got absolutely blown up. We don't want him back. We don't want this. We don't want this. We don't want this. The entire conversation was we don't want him. We don't want. Could you imagine someone and then Hooper was decent for us. You imagine someone like this who wanted to get away, was not wanted. They even fired the manager since then. They bring the guy back, and it's funny.
And he only wants to come back because of his wife.
Yes, not because he wants to be at the club. Correct. And then the funny part is, I was reading blog pages for Forest fans the other day. And it's an absolute riot because they're like, we didn't know we still had him. I thought he left. He's back. I didn't even know he came back. And is he hurt? Is he not hurt?
So it's been really £2.5 million sounds quite good right now. Then, so yeah. So you got to consider that a good bit of business, right? I think we can agree that getting a guy on a free and then selling him for £2.5 million, not too bad, not too shabby. But I think Kelvin Wilson, right? He's not the greatest football player in the world, but what's hugely important about the guy is he was a fairly big chunk of Lennon's rebuild. After the Mowbray fiasco, we had to tear the club apart. Well, Mowbray tore the club apart, and he tried to rebuild it. And part of it was getting in a fairly decent centre half on the free. So I think he's a big part of that. He did pull it around towards the end of his career, and he was pretty solid. And I think a lot of people just quickly forgot about the guy, and we've quickly forgot about him due to the upgrade and getting in Virgil van Dijk. So the money
But he's always brought up, though. People always bring up his name as ripping the spine out of the team and selling him. And I think that goes back to your point earlier about selling. What do we do with $2.5 million versus keeping the guy?
Yeah. Well, the thing
that's one.
How much did we sign Van Dijk for? Was it not $2.5 million?
Yeah, it was the same exact thing. Yeah.
So we just basically reinvested in a better football player after we got. So fair enough. But yeah, I mean, the guy like Lennon done well to bring him in. He seemed to be a good transfer. But let's face it, right? It's very hard to compare. Like, I mean, we're going to give the guy a score out of 10. We can't exactly compare him to Billy McNeil. You can't compare him to Roy Aitken. In fact, you can hardly compare him to like Alan Stubbs and Mialby because it's just apples and oranges, just such a long time ago. So in the modern era of the recent few years, assessing the players like the Wanyama's, the Samaras's, etc., the Hoopers, right? Give him a score out of 10 for his impact in his career at Celtic.
He did exactly that. He was a good servant. We made money on him, which seems to be the Peter Lawwell way.
Okay, so I forget about his transfer fee, just like his playing ability and stuff. If you had to give him a score out of 10, 10 being obviously the best score possible, like Henrik Larsson would get a 10 for being fucking awesome, and fucking Chad, what's his name, Douay would score a 1 for being the fucking worst player Celtic had ever played. What score would you give him?
I mean, if you're going to say El Kaddouri was a 1, I remember him. I would probably give him a passing grade.
He scored a goal against the Huns.
He did. That was another one of those deflections in. Yeah, exactly. But we quickly got rubbed out.
McShagger dropping it through his legs.
McShagger.
And it was in the game where Kelvin Wilson had a fucking nightmare.
No, that's correct. Didn't we have a red card in that game?
Let's not all right, okay, score out of 10.
Anyway, yeah, I would say for him 6.5 max.
I'd say, like, I don't think 6 is a bad score. I'd say if you're assessing a player and say 6 sounds average, but 6.5 is just like a solid. Okay, he was injured, so he missed half a season, so you're taking a couple of points off of that. He did have a shaky start to the season. He brought it round towards the end. I think giving him a solid 6 or 6.5. That's a good score for the guy. But anyway, that wraps up the first of our 2 episode start to the season. In the next show, we're going to be talking about Celtic's first 2 league games of the season. We'll be adding a few more sections in, so it should be good. Big thanks to Quadrophenians for letting us use their music. So here they have to play us out. Hail, hail, and keep the faith.
Well, we walked into the Lisbon sun and some 40 had it won. But we showed the world how to play, and now it's known as the Celtic way. We played the ball from side to side and until naked tries to hide. But we played the ball from front to back. Attack, 67. And he's the worst man. The first game in the thousands to see the boys become champion of 67. And he's the worst man. The first game in the thousands to see the boys become champion.